1, 2,
3, 4,
5, 6.
Hi, my name is Ashley. New Zealand is home to an indigenous group of people called the Maori. I have a picture of them up here, and this guy is displaying some of their traditional tattoos. They make up about 15% of the population, and today I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. As you may or may not know, New Zealand is a group of islands located southeast of Australia. It is approximately 104,000 square miles, which is around the same size as the state of Colorado. New Zealand is mostly known by tourists for their varied geography. It consists of beaches, subtropical forests, mountains, volcanoes, and even geothermal pools and geysers. Archaeological evidence shows that the Maori began arriving sometime around the 9th century. Their heritage has been traced to the islands of eastern Polynesia, which are located approximately 2,500 miles northeast of New Zealand. The most amazing part of their journey is that they traveled by waka, which is the Maori word for canoe. According to NewZealandExposed.com, the Maori used the canoes in everyday life as well as in battle. Their war canoes were very large and could be up to 130 feet long. Traditionally, the Maori people were hunters and gatherers. They planted their own crops as well as gathered food from the forests, streams, and seas. Their diet consisted mainly of birds and fish, along with roots such as potatoes and carrots. One of the most interesting aspects of their culture is their traditional style of cooking with the hungi, which translates to earth oven. Cooking with the hungi is a very long process. The first thing that they do is they dig a large hole in the earth, and then heated stones such as volcanic rock are used to supply the heat. The rocks and timber are usually stacked alternately, and as the wood burns down, the stones fall into the pit. It needs to burn for about 3 hours to ensure that the rocks are hot enough to cook the food. Wire baskets are used to contain the food, and there's usually separate baskets for the meat, separate baskets for the poultry, and another basket for the vegetables. Once the fire has finished burning down, they move the rocks to one side of the pit with a shovel and remove any of the wood that wasn't burned. They then throw cold water over the hot stones, and the steam that is produced actually carries the ashes out of the pit. They use the stones to make a flat bed over the remaining embers, and then they set the wire baskets onto the rocks. Once they have the food in the pit, they pour more water over the hot stones to produce more steam, and then they quickly cover it with more wet cloth to keep the steam in, as well as to protect the food from the soil. Then they bury the pit with the soil, forming a dome-shaped mound until no steam can escape. They leave it this way for about 2 to 3 hours before they dig it out to serve the food. There are many hotels in New Zealand that serve the hungi-style cuisine for the tourists, and for the more adventurous, you could even go to the official Tamaki Maori village in Rotorua, New Zealand. It's located in the forest, and once visitors arrive, they are greeted with a traditional welcome ceremony. It usually involves speeches about the cultures, traditional dancing, and singing. They can tour around the village, and they can even view demonstrations of warriors training for war and even get traditional Maori tattoos. After they've explored the village for a while, the tour guides usually take them to serve them the hungi feast, which has been cooking in the earth for 3 hours. And to get more information about this, you can actually visit their official website at maoriculture.co.nz. And are there any questions?
Yes, from beginning to end, how long does it take to prepare a hunky meal?
To prepare the hungi meal, it's really recommended that you start the day before, because you're going to need to dig the pit, and you're going to also need to prepare. It's sort of like a bonfire to burn the stones. And the next day, it's going to take about 3 hours to burn the wood, and then of course about 3 hours to actually cook the meal.
Do the stones stay hot for the duration of the cooking?
Yes, because they bury it into the earth, the steam and the hot stones are trapped in the earth, so they do stay hot the whole time they're in there.
Is there a certain area of New Zealand where the Maori live?
Today, the Maori live all over New Zealand, but most of them live predominantly on the North Island.
1,
2, 3,
4,
5,